If you write C# for a living, there is a good chance your IDE is already trying to save you from yourself. You just haven't turned on the feature on yet. Today, we are talking about one of the .NET's most misunderstood attributes, StringSyntaxAttribute. It promises smarter IntelliSense, real-time validation for things like regex, JSON, format strings, and a whole list of syntax types you probably never heard of. But here is the twist. Half of them don't actually work. Some are brilliant, and some are placeholders, and some are, well, let's just say aspirational. In the next few minutes, I'll show you what's real, what's missing, and how to use the parts that actually make your code safer. Let's get into it. String syntax was introduced in .NET 7 and is actually built into the .NET framework, so you don't need to install anything extra. It's a part of System Diagnostics Code Analysis namespace, and the whole purpose of this attribute is to help you as a user to pass correct strings to an API to provide better IntelliSense and some basic syntax validation. To demonstrate, let's say I have a method called evaluateJSON, which accepts a single string parameter. The method doesn't do anything, but it doesn't matter at this point. It expects a JSON string and maybe parses it out. Now, let's say somewhere else I am using this method and, of course, passing a JSON document. It is hard to notice, but there is a problem with this parameter. This is not actually a valid JSON document because it does not end with a figure bracket. It's hard to spot, but it's not your fault. You're not a machine. However, what we can do is go back to our method and annotate it with StringSyntaxAttribute, passing JSON as the syntax specifier. Now, if I try to come back to the method which calls this, you should see that the IDE actually detects there is a problem and even gives you an explanation what exactly the problem is. I think this is just mind-blowing. You can also see there is a basic JSON document highlighting, so it knows what are the property names and what are their values. I think this is life-changing. String syntax is more than just a JSON. You can specify a couple of different formats. A composite format, which tells that the argument should be a format string you normally use in string.format or string interpolation. Date-only format for passing date format strings, similar for date-time format, time-only, and time span. There is also a format for specifying enum values, GUIDs, numbers in a string, regular expressions, URLs, XML documents, and what we've just seen before, the JSON specifier. This is actually quite a lot to process. However, don't be too excited because majority of them simply don't work and are sort of a to-do state. At the moment of this writing, Visual Studio 2026 running .NET 10 only supports JSON and regex, which is, to be fair, is better than nothing. JetBrains Rider, on the other hand, supports twice as much. Just like Visual Studio, Rider understands invalid JSON. It also understands invalid regular expression. However, in addition to that, Rider understands the composite format. So in this case, it knows that we should work with a format string and it correctly detects the format string argument. However, it knows that the second argument is not properly formatted. This is cool because I thought Rider is using Rosling for code analysis, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Rider could also understand invalid XML, which is pretty cool. It could do as syntax highlighting for the invalid XML and detect an unclosed tag. I have created sort of a comparison table for you here, and you can see that both IDEs actually do not support majority of the format specifiers. However, Visual Studio only supports 2 of them, but Rider supports twice as much. And that's the wild world of StringSyntaxAttribute. Half genius, half coming soon. If this saved you a bug, a headache, or a regex-induced meltdown, hit like and subscribe. I've got more deep-cut .NET gems coming your way. So see you in the next one.